From struggling to make weight in his championship bouts to violently drag out his own girlfriend, here are some of the most controversial moments from the career of Gervonta Davis. Let's start with the first of his weight issues, and yes, I do mean the first of many. In January 2017, Davis sent Jose Pedraza to the mat after a 7-round bout, picking up the International Boxing Federation Super Featherweight Championship. A couple of months later in May, he was set to defend the title for the first time, with Frank Warren as his challenger. Things started to go wrong at the official weigh-in. Despite giving it his best effort, Gervonta had exceeded the weight limit by 2 ounces. He was given 2 hours to shed the extra ounces. How do you do that in 2 hours? Well, Gervonta's technique didn't get him across the finish line as he fell short of the limit again. It wasn't until his 3rd attempt that Gervonta Davis could finally lose weight. In the boxer's defense, the featherweight category is a tough one to fall into, as you can only weigh a maximum of 130 pounds to meet the class. Considering how much muscle you need to be a boxer and how much muscle weighs, it's tough to meet that threshold. Hold on to that understanding, though. We're now revisiting his second weight controversy. This debacle came just 2 months after the previous one. After successfully defending his title in May, he was booked to do it again in July, this time against the unbeatable prodigy Francisco Fonseca. While Fonseca cleared the weigh-in on the first go, Gervonta Davis was 2 hours late to the show and 2 pounds overweight. That's a bit more than last time around, right? Davis wasn't feeling very cooperative for some reason and refused to spend 2 hours of his life trying to lose 2 pounds, which led to an interesting set of circumstances. The IBF was forced to vacate the featherweight title, but the match was set to go on as planned. Fonseca could still win the vacant title if he won the match. It's just that there was no way for Davis to leave the venue with the belt around his waist. Was Gervonta feeling angry and vengeful about the way he lost his title? Maybe, and that might be why things wound up playing out the way that they did. The sort of title match was plenty controversial in its own right. Even though Fonseca was one of the top-ranked featherweights in the division, the bookies were totally calling the match in favor of Davis. Still, Fonseca managed to take the match to 8 rounds, proving that he had the ability to go toe-to-toe with the featherweight champ. However, there was some shadiness to the ending of the match, with Davis seeming to floor Fonseca with a super illegal punch to the back of the head. Though the referee didn't catch it, counting Fonseca out and handing the win to Davis, fans were skeptical of the result. It didn't help that Davis went on to taunt Fonseca later on, implying that he'd taken a dive to implicate him. In other interviews, he kept suggesting that Fonseca either cheated or just couldn't hang with the champ. For a final dose of salt to the wound, it turned out that Davis earned an eye-watering $600,000 for the match, while Fonseca got a comparatively meager $35,000 for his trouble. These events came early on in Gervonta Davis's career and helped establish his firebrand reputation. Not to mention making videos like this one possible, but Tank is a boxer, so fighting is his job. However, he hasn't always done a good job of keeping it in the ring. In 2020, the story of Gervonta abusing his girlfriend hit the media. The pair was attending a celebrity basketball game in Miami in February, and footage shows him getting violent with his partner. He charged at her while she was seated and grabbed her by the neck, lifting her out of the seat and taking her into the venue's tunnel. The two of them were followed into the tunnel by 2 men who were trying to get Gervonta under control. In security photos, you could also see that the boxer tried to punch her as they were in the locker room area. When the police inevitably got involved, they took Davis downtown. They also reported that the girlfriend had suffered injuries to her lip and jaw in the tussle. He was eventually charged with 2 counts of misdemeanor battery, to which Davis pleaded not guilty. While Davis admitted that whatever he did was a poor and angry reaction, he insisted that he never hit her or engaged in violence with her besides the initial grabbing. There too, he grabbed her by the shirt, not by the neck, so he says. Eventually, the girlfriend also retracted the charges against Gervonta Davis, but she also retracted his boyfriend card. The cycle would go on to repeat itself, unfortunately. Just 2 years later, Davis was caught up in another domestic violence case. In December 2022, Davis was arrested and thrown in the slammer, facing a charge of battery and domestic violence. On the 911 calls, the woman he was abusing begged the police for help, saying that she was afraid for her life. The police noted that she had a wound in her lip, suggesting that Davis's left hook may have something to do with it. This matter was over quickly enough as the victim dropped the charges against Davis. In fact, he was done with this business so quickly that his match with Hector Garcia, which was scheduled for a few days after this incident, still went through. Gervonta is clearly no stranger to legal trouble. These weren't even his first unsanctioned assaults. We're going back to 2017 for this one. In September of that year, Gervonta Davis was arrested in Maryland, and he was facing a charge of first-degree aggravated assault. The incident took place in August. Though TMZ didn't have their guys there, the details weren't immediately clear. Later, though, Davis's childhood friend Anthony Wheeler told the story of what happened, saying that Davis had punched him in the side of the head with a gloved fist at the Upton Boxing Center. As Davis's court date drew near, the aggravated assault charge was dropped to second-degree assault, a misdemeanor. Nevertheless, Davis was facing a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison, a $2,500 fine, or both. He must have a silver tongue or something, though, because he managed to get his charges dropped in this situation, too. In fact, at the court hearing where the charges were dropped, Davis and Wheeler were seen leaving the court hugging each other. This is a troubling pattern of behavior for sure, and it continued with another incident. In 2018, Davis was arrested in Washington, D.C. after he and another man got into a fistfight. Although someone tried to stop the fight, they kept going until the fuzz arrived. No charges were filed in this case, but man, Gervonta needs to keep his anger and fists in check. But assaults aren't the only trouble Davis gets into. Here's just a quick smattering of all of Tank's other legal issues. And what's bad about this is that all of this happened in just the past couple of years. In March 2021, he was indicted on 14 insane counts of running a red light. This came from a November 2020 birthday party where he crashed into another car in his Lambo SUV. As the car, with its 4 passengers, including a pregnant woman, was left in a heap, Davis and his party skedaddled in a Camaro that picked them up. Gervonta eventually pleaded guilty to charges of leaving the scene of an accident involving bodily injury, failing to notify an owner of property damage, driving on a suspended license, and, of course, running a red light. His life could have gotten way worse if any one of his victims had been more seriously injured. A few months later in August, Davis was on a private jet. Yeah, he's one of those people. That jet suffered a nose wheel collapse and skidded off the runway while taking off at Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. While he and his passengers weren't hurt, it might have been more important that the airport wasn't hurt either. Those are all the stories of Gervonta Davis's controversial moments.